and streams, for the deep and the wide, and the world's on its side, and time is running backwards, and so is the bride.
Welcome to Songs of Experience, a Bob Dylan podcast where we explore the man and the music one song at a time. I'm your host, Henry Bernstein, and I'm thrilled to welcome rock star, old friend, favorite Shabbat guest, the legendary Chicagoan Ezra Furman, here to talk about Ring Them Bells from Bob Dylan's 1989 masterpiece, Oh Mercy. Hello.
Hello, I'm so psyched to be here.
This is amazing. I'm so glad you're here. Usually when we're in the same place, we're either praying or we're at my house looking at Bob Dylan books, and it's the Sabbath, so we can't record our conversation.
Which we totally would if it wasn't
Right.
Shabbat,
Right. Exactly. I'm thrilled you're here. And by the way, apologies to my brother Aryeh, who is also a favorite Shabbat guest, but you're up there.
I'm privileged to know multiple Bernsteins.
Well, we love you. Yeah. So, all right. So before we get into the song, I would love to hear your Bob Dylan origin story. When and how did you get into Bob? And I know some of this is, out there officially, but I'd love to hear your a personal version right now.
Yeah, totally. It was a watershed moment in my life to be my first exposure to Bob Dylan. I'll tell you what happened was I was interested in getting a guitar. I knew this kid who we were kind of into punk rock stuff and like Green Day, pop punk kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And he was like, "Oh yeah, it's easy to play guitar. Like you play these punk songs are easy. You just
It's three chords and that's it. Two
yeah,
chords sometimes.
you basically learn one chord and just move it
Yeah.
around." And I was like, "Okay, maybe I could actually do this." And then so I convinced my parents to obtain a guitar for me. It was my bar mitzvah present.
Really? Oh,
Yes,
wow.
it was. But it was kind of on condition. Specifically, I think from my mom, she was like, you have to play something that we like also. And so she was like, Bob Dylan would be a great place to start, and I was like, okay. So she got me, I think
You weren't like, who's that?
I was basically like, who's that? I hadn't,
Yeah.
I guess I'd heard the name. I don't know. And she got me a chord book of Bob Dylan's songs. And I was like, for my mom, I will at least learn to play one of these songs. This book was alphabetically organized, so the first song in there was Absolutely Sweet Marie, A-B, So I was like, oh, yeah. And my parents have this album, Blonde on Blonde. Let me take a listen and see if I can. It was sort of like a favor to my mom, out of duty. I'll listen to this song and see.
Right.
Instantly shocked by this man's voice.
Wow.
I was like, I started with Absolutely Sweet Marie, just like skipped to that song on a CD that my parents had in the house, and I was like stunned. I was stunned, and then I was in the world of Blonde on Blonde, and I was like, I don't know what I was like. My parents' music, okay, they had like the Beatles, they had like Elton John's greatest hits and stuff, and like I was like, okay, their music
Stuff from the 70s.
Right. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm into some like punk rock now. I'm 13 years old. I know what I like, and it's not what they've got going on. And then I hear Blonde on Blonde, and I'm like, okay, I spoke too soon. There's something going on here. This is completely fascinating. It was like turning key after key in my brain of like everything about it was enchanting to me. And then I went down this like rabbit hole. I can't remember. I was just
You
like,
did the deep dive, the plunge that we all do at some point. Yeah, the
yeah,
sickos do.
yeah, I did, and it was from that same book of songs that I actually wrote my first song because there were songs in there that I hadn't heard the record. Yeah, I think I just had Blonde on Blonde, and I was like, I'm gonna like learn these songs even though I've never heard them. And then I just made up my own version of "If You See Her, Say Hello," which I'd never heard, and I was like really fast and like strumming along, and
Because you saw the chords and so
I,
you knew how to play it, but you didn't know like the tempo
I
or
didn't know the tempo, I didn't know the
rhythm.
melody, the vocal
Yeah.
melody, anything. So I was like,
Oh my God.
and then I actually heard Bob Dylan's "If You See Her, Say Hello," and I was like, what is this? Is not. I thought I was at least going to be close, but this is totally different. So then I just made up my own lyrics to the same meter, and then I was like, literally wrote a song that I can play on guitar, and it sounds nothing like the Bob Dylan song. And that song was not a good song. Play it in public now, but it like set me on this. I was like, I'm writing songs,
Wow.
and so like Bob Dylan was my completely my gateway to songwriting and even thinking about songwriting, and it was a big deal. And then I don't know, I went kind of haphazardly through a bunch of records and got way into it. But I should say about my Bob Dylan fandom that like it was like I remember at some point I was like 17 years old. I'd been writing a bunch of songs. I was like performing them at open mics. I was like, and I had this moment one day. I was listening for the millionth time to the album Highway 61 Revisited. I specifically remember I was listening to Tombstone Blues, and I was like, I'm not going to be able. I'm not gonna do anything like this. Like I thought, like maybe I can write Bob Dylan type of songs, and like it hit me all at once. I was in my bedroom. I remember this moment. I was like, this can't really be a relevant influence on me because like I'm I'm a teenager. Like I cannot touch what's going on with like right here in this on this record, you know? Not like because I didn't believe in myself, but like I was like, this has a whole context that has nothing to do with anything I'm trying to. So I really pulled back. I pulled back from. I was like, I have to find some other stuff to be my influences. You know?
Like because you felt yourself being so influenced that you didn't want to be, you like knew there is a chance of being derivative or
If I think I had a sense like I guess I could do like a 17-year-old's version of this, but that's not gonna be real to me. I'm just like I can't just like imitate guy in a totally different context from decades ago. And I remained I don't know, and then I started pulling back. And then like when I really pulled back was in college. It felt like a million Bob Dylan things came out. I think like Chronicles came out and No Direction Home came out. And
in
I
the
was
modern times. Yeah.
and then right amount of times and it was just like I was like there's like too much worship of this dude and it's like this is like wait I don't know I kind of stopped listening to Bob Dylan
Wow.
stop because then Modern Times came out I definitely got into Modern Times but like but I really was like if I'm gonna do something great with my own music I can't like I'm not gonna model myself on this guy that everybody thinks is the greatest, and
Hmm.
I don't know this. I don't want to commit heresy on you on this.
Oh
I,
no, people have said worse so far. No, I'm just kidding.
there's no questioning that I'm like such a deep fan, and yet I also like have a beloved. I no, I hold dear my skepticism of like I'm not just gonna give Bob Dylan a gold medal for every song he writes.
Yeah, yeah, you're critical of things
I
that,
am
yeah,
critical,
yeah.
and sometimes people are like, it's it's him, it's this man. Can you believe it? And I'm like, man, it's called Wiggle Wiggle, you know?
Well, it's funny because when you said like there's alphabetical, I thought you were gonna say like 10,000 men or something, like it from...
Yeah, this wasn't like every Bob Dylan. This was like some
Right,
kind of collection.
selections.
Yeah, that was the first one they had. So like, yeah, I feel like it's strange to be a fan. It's a different thing to be a fan while you're also trying to make your own
I'm sure. Yeah.
with something like the same craft, in the same
Hmm.
genre of art. because I feel like I have to be very careful. Like, I don't know. I've seen artists that really just are like a pale imitation of some hero of theirs, and
Right.
it can be a real dead end, and I'm very wary of that.
Right.
Uh,
And I mean, with Bob Dylan specifically, how many times have we heard blank, fill in the blank, the next Bob Dylan, right? Going
yes,
back to Springsteen, right? Like going back to Donovan,
yeah, or like
Right.
Steve Forbear.
Right.
I mean, I had the same kind of thought when I first got into Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. I was like, this
Mm.
is the greatest record ever, and then I was like, I don't think there's actually that much useful information here for me. I cannot do what is happening here.
Right, right, right. Well, if I could follow up with what you're saying,
Yeah.
I was going to ask you this later, but we're on the topic. So I will say that before we became friends, and even though at the time we shared a mutual friend who was in your carpool, the person who got me into Dylan, Josh Freed, but before we were friends, I was aware of you because I liked your music, and I have to admit that like one of the things that attracted me to you as a performer, what if I could blow smoke up your ass for a minute, is you're sort of, there was an ineffable quality in your Harpoons era that at times some seemed Dylan-esque, and I'm saying that as a compliment.
Oh,
Specifically like the take off your sunglasses video, and highly recommend folks check that out. Like I'm when I was watching it, I had the same feeling, positive feeling inside of me that I did the first time I saw like Subterranean Homesick Blues. So I guess my question to all that
oh.
is what were you was that something you were aware of and certainly I'm sure you saw the comparisons to early Bob Dylan. There was writing about you and comparing Bob Dylan, and like how did that affect you in terms of that? Is that what you're talking about right now? Is like
Just to be clear, I don't think that I dodged the bullet of being derivative of Bob Dylan.
I'm not saying you're a derivative.
Well, no,
Yeah.
especially early on, like
Yeah.
not only was I derivative, but I was like playing harmonica on a harmonica rack and like wearing
Right.
Ray-Ban sunglasses. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Right. Okay. All right. So that
Like
was a thing. Okay, great.
yeah.
Confirmed.
But I, yeah, I was kind of. I think I was organically like using the tools I had at my disposal
Hmm.
at a very young and like I think I can do something interesting. Yeah, I mean,
You were like 22, 23 then, right?
yes,
Yeah.
and maybe in a way I was filling in what I wasn't getting from Bob Dylan, a kind of I guess relatability or like friendliness, like the I feel like Bob Dylan's on one end of a spectrum and like Jonathan Richman is on another as the opposite end of the spectrum where it's like Bob Dylan does
He's
not
closed off to us.
he doesn't
Yeah.
yeah
Yeah.
he doesn't seem quite human and he's
Right.
like taken these like a tone that you cannot imagine what a conversation would be like with this man.
Right.
Yeah, I had something of that like both punk and friendly spirit of I want to both sort of like make this music into great literature and also be a normal person, a person who I don't know is not doesn't sound like they're reading out of the Bible,
Hmm. Hmm.
but is like uh, down to earth and in touch with
Humans.
humans and
Yeah.
yes, life in the street. I mean that's and like I feel like Lou Reed in a way was a model for me to like get both of those things. Like
Okay.
he's so down to earth. He's so plain spoken, but he's also not to say that he's always relatable. Sometimes he's sort of a sociopath,
And we should
but
also say that you wrote about him, and you can
yes, yeah.
buy that book that Ezra Furman wrote, that small book.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
I was like looking at those artists
Yeah.
who are like this is a way to make literature. You know,
Hmm.
I think people like that always made music. I never felt like a good musician and never felt like a very musical brain. I've gotten good at certain music things, but like I was like, especially when I was starting out, I was like, I just play guitar so I can like yell
Right.
along
Right.
with it. That that are like well written words.
Hmm.
Just a way to
Um,
make poems hit harder, you know?
right. Okay, one more question about that before we actually get into the song, which I know we haven't even barely mentioned it yet. In terms of performance, I would say like certain type of Bob Dylan performance, you perform both with a backing band with very loud
Yes.
amps turned up and feedback and like you said, shouting, screaming, and you also are a pretty captivating performer when I've been lucky enough to be in a room with you and a guitar and like 40 people. To you, what type of performance speaks to you more as an output, like from your perspective?
Oh, I mean, don't make me choose, you know?
So there's like I guess so you're saying like there's sort of advantages to both.
Yeah, there's advantages to both. I don't know. There's certain songs in both modes that you can't do. You can't properly honor them. I mean, maybe Ring Them Bells is in between, but like it's hard to imagine punk rock Ring Them Bells. You know what I mean? Um,
You're like challenge accepted.
like, it's not like yeah, that's all. I must have both. I give up either one.
You can
And
you can have them. It's your interview. You can have both of them. So ring the bells. Before we get into the lyrics and the music, this album was recorded between February and April 1989 at 1305 Soniat Street in New Orleans, with Ring Them Bells specifically being recorded on March 7th and overdubbed on April 6th, another sort of surprise overdub for Bob Dylan. And it was released the following September. So a pretty quick turnaround. The
mhm,
recording of this album is the stuff of legend, and you can read all about that on Wikipedia and in
Chronicles.
Chronicles, right? In Chronicles, Bob Dylan says about this song specifically, Daniel Lanois, the producer, captured the essence of it on this, put the magic into its heartbeat and pulse. We cut the song exactly the way I found it. 2 or 3 takes with me on the piano, Dan on guitar, and Malcolm Byrne on keyboards. Ezra, what is your relationship to Oh Mercy specifically as an album before we get into like Ring Them Bells? Oh Mercy as a piece. What is your relationship to it?
Okay. Well, it's a whole thing because Oh Mercy was like it was one of the last Bob Dylan albums that I heard in full. I just saved Oh Mercy. It was when I did some of that pulling back from Bob Dylan, mainlining it 24. Like, I was like, okay, that'll be there for me. And I knew already, Ring Them Bells came into my life when I was a teenager because I had Greatest Hits Volume 3. Somebody got me that I don't know, I can't remember why I had that
Hmm.
CD. And so this song immediately jumped out, even from that amazing, it's a Greatest Hits album.
Hmm.
But like, I hadn't heard that one before, and I had heard most of the time because it's around, and I think I first heard it from the High Fidelity soundtrack, and
Great soundtrack.
I was like, yeah, people say "Oh Mercy" is a really good album. I'll get there, and I just didn't get there. That was like the one that I just left it hanging and unheard, and I didn't hear it until 2020 during the pandemic when I was doing like, I mean, basically I wasn't even writing it yet, really, but like listening to Oh Mercy in some way like activated my brain in a way that I could write my last record. And it was like, so I heard it for the first time and I was both kind of blown away by it as an experience. And also I was like, it's not too good to be influenced by. And like, I don't
Hmm.
know if I don't think it's wall to wall perfection, you know?
Hmm.
I think it takes a second to get into. It's like once Ring Them Bells comes in track 4, like that's when I'm like, oh, this is incredible.
So like when that little intro in Political World hits, you weren't like, this is it. Took you a little bit.
I mean, I particularly don't like the song "Everything Is Broken."
Hmm.
Doesn't do much for me. Even "Political World," it's like it's not like stunner Bob Dylan lines. It's like we live in times where men commit crimes. And I'm like,
Those two are probably the most sort of 80s Bob of the songs on the album. Like the rest of the album sort of sounds more like Good as I've
Right.
been to, world gone wrong, time out of
Right.
mind. Right.
Time out of mind. It's sort
Yeah.
of like he's leaning toward that kind of mastery.
Hmm.
But still, but although I didn't like them at first that much, political, but like, especially everything is broken. Like, I was like, this is really a cohesive character. This is like a worldview, and everything is broken sets that
Hmm.
scene,
Hmm.
and political world really sets the scene for the tone he's taking here in
Hmm.
such a way that like the other songs hit more. Like this is one Bob Dylan album where like even though this is the way I was introduced to it, if you just take a couple tracks out of it, they're great, but they don't hit as hard as when
Yeah.
it's like this one beautiful interconnected piece.
Right. And like, because it's also so short, it's like under 50 minutes or something, you can listen to this album in full. And I feel it's very similar. Also, I'll listen to songs individually, like Ring the Bells or most of the time, but I need to listen to the whole album, this
Yeah,
one.
it's such a closed. Yeah, it's just like a diamond, and I guess it's sort of to me. I'm like he found this tone which he really lives in, like on Time Out of Mind, and like just going forward, where like I don't know this tone that I just really relate to, where it just feels like he's like, is this the world? Is this really the world?
Hmm.
You know, this is what we get. I can't believe it's this debased, and it feels like he's really kind of heartbroken,
Hmm.
and he was angry in this Christian period before that, the more self-righteous and judging everybody as like, and I relate to that too, to be honest. but like this reaches a new place where like his heartbreak comes through, and that mix of sort of the venom of this world is just poisonous,
Hmm.
but then also I don't know, I just feel his like broken heart at the core of it.
Right. Well, then specifically about this song, do you feel the brokenness in this song, or is
Yeah,
there more of a sense of hope? I mean, certainly in performance, it doesn't feel as broken. And I guess, Ezra, the bigger question is, why this song? Why did you pick this song?
this is the best song on this record.
Hmm.
I feel it's there's no question,
Hmm.
and I feel like it might be the best of this adult spiritual Bob Dylan.
Hmm.
Like Blood on the Tracks feels very adult, and that is, it might be the best, it might be my favorite Bob Dylan album all in all. But it doesn't, it's not, I feel like a new piece of like the puzzle of why Bob Dylan is valuable doesn't actually come into full focus until this song. And
Wow.
the way that, like, yes, it is hopeful and it's also a little bit hopeless, and it's just like so I don't know. I'd like well, okay, here's another thing I should say about this. And this is really the reason why I ring them bells. I'm a religious person. I'm
Hmm.
a spiritual person, and I grew up and have lived a lot my adult life in a lot of scenes that are not like very welcoming to that, and are
Hmm.
very kind of like skeptical of that. I'm like, you're into what? Like the Bible, really? Organized religion? That's what you're into? And I've just like, I went from a place of being very sheepish and like, yeah, whatever, it's my weird little thing, Judaism, no big deal, don't even
Hmm.
look at me. and from and learning to be like, no, yes, motherfucker, this is how I think. This is
Hmm.
like the language in which I operate. And also, it's not what you think it is. And this goes deeper, is more urgent, and is more countercultural than the version of it that seems to have been sold to you. And was like sold to me. Like, I didn't, it's been deepening my whole life as I stay interested in the Jewish tradition, but also just a spiritual worldview, a God haunted world for my whole life. Every year there's a new side of it.
Mm.
And so like I love Bob Dylan for his dive into religion. It's so almost like it's too much for me. Okay, like I don't
Hmm.
the Christianity. He got into specifically like
Evangelical, yeah. Hmm.
really hard for a lot of Jews in particular to like stomach.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this on the podcast before, and I recognize the irony of two Jewish kids from Chicago who are pretty ritually observant talking about Bob's most Christian song on this album. So let's just throw that out there.
Yeah.
St. Peter, St. Catherine, the whole thing. But I think like for me at least for like the Christian period, I took all Bob Dylan all in at the same time. So I have like sort of this out of body experience of I can imagine feeling a betrayal and a sadness and anger about that period of time if I had been alive. If I was me then, I could imagine feeling like if I was alive and when Slow Train came out. But but I also have the ability to look at those songs just as great songs and as a great period of music. But it is a weird thing.
Yeah, I mean, there can be something uncomfortable about it, but I don't like, I refused to listen to all of Shot of Love for years also.
Mm,
Because
mm.
and I still haven't actually listened to Saved. But like Shot of Love in particular, is I was like, I am not sitting down to listen to a song called Property of Jesus.
Right, right,
Just not.
right.
And when I finally did, I was like, damn, I really get how he feels here.
Mhm. I know,
I
right?
really get it. Like,
You should listen to Saved.
I probably should. Like,
Yeah.
he's like furious and he doesn't,
Right,
and he's like, leave them. He's just like, I just love him for that.
right,
It's so punk how he's like, so don't be my fan.
right,
Get out,
right.
you know?
Not the
And
first time he's done that, by the way.
absolutely.
And kind of
Like,
not the last.
yeah, it's like charged with the electricity of like, I'm really responding to where I'm at and not where you think I ought to be at. And I do think it's funny how like people like kind of like define this Christian period as like these three records, but like the one after the Christian period is called Infidels and has a song about Satan and like
Right, right.
it's like
He didn't put that fully away. Yeah.
yeah, and like I think it was more marketing. He's like, everybody calm down, it's fine. Like
Right, right.
but yeah, I am an artist and a songwriter who is trying to like, that is the same thing that I'm trying to do, like check a spiritual check-in with myself. Like, where am I actually at?
Hmm.
My art should be reflecting that. And at the end of the day, what someone wants or expects out of me, ideally, I can't even hear that voice. I don't. There's nothing to tell me, nothing to teach me, and I just like feel this in Bob's, particularly in his like spirit, his most religious songs.
Hmm.
And
Is this a religious song?
yes, I mean, yeah, it's like it's an unpalatably
Right.
religious song for people who are skeptic, who are like feel queasy about Christianity.
Right.
Like,
He opens up by calling us all heathens, right? I mean, that's
yeah,
a very, it's for someone who didn't want to be called the prophet. Here he is doing what Isaiah and Ezekiel did, which was repent. He continues.
ring them bells, St. Peter, where the four winds blow. Ring them bells with an iron hand so the people will know. It's a rush hour now, on the wheel and the plow, when the sun is going down upon a sacred cow.
Whereas in those Christian albums that we talked about, the overt tones of Christianity sort of hits you over the head. For whatever reason, St. Peter just washes right through me. It doesn't even phase me in this song. And later, St. Catherine and whoever Sweet Martha is, like, for whatever reason, I don't know why, even though this is such a religious song, it doesn't affect me in that way. What are your thoughts on that sort of aspect of it?
I think it's down to the strength and the spirit of the song. I think what he was, I mean, he wasn't not trying to be a Christian artist. He was trying to do that in his
Mm.
like Christian period.
Right.
But beneath that sort of personal campaign and that personal transformation, I just think he has usually had the same goal, which is like to voice a critique of his times that people are actually afraid to hear.
So is this like a rebuke, this song?
I think it's like I hope, I mean, it's kind of like it is a rebuke, but it's also like a welcoming rebuke. You can just feel we don't have to do this. This world doesn't have, we don't have to break down the distance between right and wrong like this. The mountains are filled with lost sheep. There's something so caring about it. There's like, he's not like,
But the shepherd is asleep. Right, right. Yeah, right.
it's not an
Yeah.
insult. You've got something better. You've got a heart of stone, you know? Like as in Property of Jesus, it's like it's tender. There's this tenderness to it, and like I don't know. Yeah, I don't like love to sing "Chosen Few who will judge the many when the game is through." You know, it's like not really my theology. But like, the reason this song exists, and in some ways, like the reason an artist like this exists, is because he finds ways to say things that other people can't say, you know? And it's like, it's why, like, I've sort of come to love Political World, Everything is Broken, these songs that didn't work for me that much on the list. And I'm like, oh, that's what builds the world in which he can have a moment like this.
You mentioned the line that, like, do I even like singing that? So to be perfectly transparent here, you're in full disclosure, you're doing now two favors for me because I asked you to come on the podcast, but I also asked you to record a song for the Dylan Fans for Harris live stream, which in my opinion completely stole the show. Thank you for doing that. That was amazing. People loved it. And thank you also for coming on and joining the chat. There was something about this song that spoke to you. And I remember in our, text messages about it, you said something to the effect of like, it's inside you. And, because when we were we knew we were going to talk about it here. And then you were thinking about what to sing there. And then it wasn't just these lyrics, clearly, because you told me you really wanted to nail down the tremolo that the guitarist is playing there. And first of all, you nailed it. Spoiler alert. I mean, people were truly moved by the just also the musicality of your performance, not just the way you embodied the words. And so, what I want to know is what is it about this song musically that sort of got inside of you and made you want to perform it?
It's so gorgeous. I mean, like I don't know how often people say this because you hear the opposite of this so often, but I think, as with a lot of Bob Dylan songs, the music is kind of better than the lyrics. You shouldn't even put them in, like, you can't even compare them to each other because they're symbiotic, of course. But
yeah, we are very pro Bob Dylan singing, Bob Dylan music here on this podcast. Yes, yeah, for sure.
And I mean, like, I think my longtime favorite and first entry point being Blonde on Blonde, it's like everyone talks about the lyrics and they're amazing, Jewels and Binoculars and stuff. And
the Thin Wild Mercury music.
Yeah, but but it's also that in both, I would say this about Ring Them Bells and Blonde on Blonde and a bunch of Bob Dylan stuff, is like he's made this world where almost anything he says in the voice that he's found sounds like hits you. When he's just, even when it's like jelly-faced women all sneeze, he's built this world where it lands, even when he says, I don't know, I can't like imagine, I like think that God is one, but I don't think that's a good lyric for a song.
It's interesting though, because like in a very sort of Christian song, that is a very Jewish thing to say.
Yeah.
Right, like literally, it's like he said the Shema in the song. Basically, that's about the closest he's come to that, right? Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. I mean, it's right there.
I mean, by the time of Oh Mercy, I think he knows that he's purposely blurring the line between a Jewish and Christian perspective.
Sure. He's talked about, even recently, he talked about, he said he reads the Bible, the Christian Bible, the scriptures. He's talked about, like these very Christian words in the way that Jews don't describe the Bible. He talks about them. And so, yeah, he mixes metaphors in a way, for sure.
Yeah, it's all, I mean, like the history of recorded music, it's all like to him it's all his to play with, and
Right.
that's the correct attitude, I think, toward like scripture. It's all there for you. So anyway, musically,
Yeah.
this song is magical, and it has.
Is it the piano? Is it the guitar? Is it that Lenoir murkiness? What is it? I mean,
I mean,
even there's that odd sort of, is it a bridge? Is it a chorus? Ring
them bells for the blind and the deaf. Ring them bells for all of us who are left. Ring them bells for the chosen few who will judge so many when the game is through. Ring them bells for the time that flies, for the child that cries when innocence dies.
When we listen to that 1994 Japan live version, that's when the orchestra sort of swells and comes alive.
Ring them bells by the blind and the deaf. Ring them bells by the ones that are left. Ring them bells by the chosen few who will judge the many when the game is through.
Right? I mean, what is it musically that works so well here?
So I think in the recording on Oh Mercy, a tremolo guitar in a sort of tender song, I'm just always a sucker for that.
Tell for folks who might not know what that means, tell us, like, as a technical term, what is the tremolo guitar?
The electric guitar signal is going in it like from loud to quiet very quickly. So what's the melody that's tremolo on this? It's what the guitar is doing on this song. Dun, 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 wah, 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 wah.
It's sort of echoing itself in a way very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it gives like a trembling quality. It's like they call it tremolo.
It's automatopoeia for sure. Yeah.
It's that. It's also that the song is you think it's like rubato. You think it's like, oh, they're ignoring the time signature. They're like, they keep letting it hang, and there's no drummer. There's nothing like keeping the beat. But everything is rhythmically. Every player is very rhythmically aware.
Like, if you wanted to, could you slot a drum track in there that works? Like, are they staying on a beat, or for the most part?
I'm guessing they're probably not actually, but I think if you were a drummer, you could play along to this because it has a feel, it has a groove to it.
A groove, yeah.
Even without drums or bass.
What is happening in that sort of bridge/chorus? Like, is it a bridge? Is it a chorus? I know that's a question we've asked of Bob Dylan before, but like, what musically changes there?
Yeah, the ring them bells. Yeah, it's sort of a two-part bridge. Right? It's just whatever it is. It's sort of a climax of the song, and it goes to the minor six in this like in a classic like dramatic way. But then it just has like it's one of those things. I wonder if this is gonna make sense. Something that songs sometimes do, especially in a bridge section, that I love is like you think you've reached the climax and it's gonna go back to the regular part, but then it goes further and it goes to another. It goes beyond the climax.
Like, so you're saying the "for the child that cries" part?
Yes.
Yeah. And then tags it with "when the innocent dies." Like it does that thing again.
Yeah, it's generous. It's musically generous. It's giving more catharsis than you might expect it to.
I love that it's musically generous. There's something very just sort of yummy about this song. It's like a cup of hot cocoa and a blanket. It's like it gets inside of you.
Yeah, I mean, so when I learned to play it, and I was playing it like a couple times a day leading up to that live stream that we did, and I had actually not ever played it on any instrument before, and something does change when you learn to play a song. I feel like this doesn't always happen, but this like just was like I've loved this song for years, but to learn to play it, it was like taking over my brain a little bit. I was like, suddenly I'm like seeing the rest of my day through the angry but hopeful eyes of this song, Yeah, it got really under my skin. And I feel like thankful that you like asked me to perform a Bob Dylan song, because like it's also been a while. I don't know when. Yeah, every once in a while I try and learn a new Dylan song. And
Yeah, if you I did some poking around the internet, and there are some Bob Dylan covers out there that you've done.
He's young and he's wild. My only prayer is if I can't be there, Lord, protect my child.
Julia was a gambler, gambled all around. She was a gambling girl, she laid her money down. And she's all I've got is gone. You must leave now, take what you need, you think will last. But whatever you wish to keep, you better grab it fast. He understands your orphan with his gun, crying like a fire in the sun. Look out, the saints are coming through, and it's all over now, baby blue.
Is that something? So like when I go to a concert, my secret wish is that the person performing will cover a Bob Dylan song. Like that's just like it's my fantasy. And sometimes it comes true.
Yeah.
And so do you ever, when you're performing, have a desire to do a Bob Dylan song for any, like might Ring Them Bells enter the set list in future shows for you?
You know, I'll think about it. Yeah, I mean,
Please invite me if it does ahead of time.
and I have played, I used to play Chimes of Freedom sometimes.
Mhm.
It was a bit long.
Yeah.
And I definitely am not taking out a verse. I just can't bear to. I think there's a YouTube video from some years ago of me.
I think it's 2011, you playing Chimes of Freedom. There's a YouTube video. Yeah.
For real? Really? That long ago?
I think so. I mean, might have been, maybe it was later, but it was a while ago.
Yeah, no, I think I've done it more than once. Yeah, that was when that similarly I like leaned into and just played a zillion times. All between sundown's finished and midnight's broken toll, we ducked inside the doorways, thunder went crashing as majestic bells of bolts struck shadows in the sound, seeming to be the chimes of freedom flashing, flashing for the warriors whose strength is not to fight, flashing for the refugees on the unarmed road of flight, for each and every underdog, soldier in the night, and we gazed upon the chimes of freedom flashing. But yeah, I approach a Bob Dylan cover with some wariness for a couple of reasons. One, the main one being that like so many Bob Dylan performances are so gorgeously idiosyncratic, and like if you're like trying to copy his record, then you hear a version that he plays live, you're like, oh, I'm an idiot. Like that's not like, it doesn't have to be that way that he sang it the first time, you know?
Right.
It, like this is he's truly free with it, and it's a text that is his to re-experience, and anyone's to re-experience anytime it's played.
Right.
and it should be experienced not as a dead thing, but as a like it's not it's not classical music, you know.
Right.
It's folk music in a deep way. Like
Right.
it's a text for you to use, and it should come through you in an organic way because it's yours. Like I think that that's true.
Like a cover to you specific, I mean, and specifically Bob Dylan, like shouldn't just be a frivolous thing. It should be something that is coming to you and inside of you that you can sort of make your own when you're performing.
Well, I think it can be frivolous.
Mm.
I just don't. I actually think it should be frivolous. Like
Okay, all right.
reverent of the version that was recorded on March 7th, 1989. You know,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
it's like it's actually for a song is for the singer to sing. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? I really like. I think I have in the past sometimes sung other people's songs, and it's just sort of an imitation, and it's like it's not actually coming out of my throat, and I'm just remembering something and hoping I can take some of that thing's mojo. But if what you should do with a cover, and especially a Bob Dylan cover, and especially one like, I mean, most Bob Dylan songs, the melody, it's not, you don't have to stick to it. It's really loose, and I think
He doesn't even stick to it.
oh, he doesn't, and that shows you that, like, I don't know, a song should belong to the singer who sings it.
Do you think that to a certain extent it belongs to the audience when it's given? Like you have accepted, obviously the song belongs to Bob Dylan, but you accepted it, and isn't it in some ways yours now?
Like, I've accepted the gift, and now
I'm talking about spiritually. I'm not talking about like
I mean,
monetarily
Bob Dylan feels that way about music. Like, rolling and tumbling is his to
Right.
do what he likes with.
Right. It's literally not his song, right? And it's not credited. Yeah.
I mean, I do think he should credit the
Muddy
song
Waters, yeah.
more, but that's not
Whole other, yeah, that's a whole other topic, a show about love and theft, so to speak. Yeah, but I mean, like when he's even performing it, he is owning it because it's his song in a way, and doing what he wants with it because it's his. And also in many ways it's sort of like a cover, doing a Bob Dylan cover, right? I mean, it's this song in particular, it shocks me that it's one of those ones that shocks me isn't performed more. It has only been performed 31 times, which officially makes it a rarity. And you would think more. Like, I've seen Shooting Star a bunch of times. Like, in my mind, those are like in the same sort of realm, but it's like I said, it's only been performed 31 times. First time in Poughkeepsie, New York in October of 1989, and the last time in November of 2005. So like this one hasn't been around for almost 20 years. And we talked about briefly that most iconic performance from 1994 at the Great Music Experience. Ezra, first of all, have you ever seen Bob Dylan, and have you ever heard Ring Them Bells? He played it in Boston in '05.
That's wild because I saw him in Boston in '05. I've seen Bob Dylan twice.
Okay.
I swear.
Was it April 17th, 2005 at the Orpheum?
No.
Well, too bad, because you missed a Ring Them Bells that night.
I looked this up. I looked up the set list of the two shows. So I saw him at some point before Modern Times was released, and not long after it was released.
Well, he did 3 shows at the Orpheum in '05 right in a row. So like maybe you went.
Was Modern Times came out in '06.
'06.
Right. No, I went in Alston in this. It was like a college. It was a place where you could. I think they.
Agganis Arena in 2006.
Oh, maybe so. It was maybe 2006.
Yeah, that was '06. Yeah.
Oh, I don't.
Oh, so it was like one of those. Oh, yeah, in the '06 on the Modern Times tour, he was doing minor league hockey arenas. It was like these small arenas. Yeah, it wasn't a great venue for him, but those are some good shows.
Anyway, yeah, and I'm fairly certain it was not one of the times that he played Ring Them Bells.
It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like it.
The first time I saw him, I was absolutely entranced.
When was that?
I believe it was 2005. That's what I think it was fall 2005.
Also in Boston?
Yes, well, in Alston. to be quite accurate. And I looked this up. Now I have to. Now, like, we can edit
Yeah.
it.
Oh yeah, we got to get into it.
I mean, that is Boston.
It was November 21st, 2004.
2004. Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
At Harvard.
Yes, that's right.
Rainy Day Women, Forever Young. Wow. God knows. Desolation Row. It's All Right, Ma.
Yes,
Damn, he
exactly.
played Desolation Row and It's All Right, Ma back to back. Late Lady Lay, High Water, Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Don't Think Twice. Stuck Inside a Mobile. John Brown. Nice. Honest with Me, Sugar Baby, Summer Days, Like Rolling Stone, and Watchtower. Great show, Ezra, for a first Bob Dylan show.
It was a great show. He made absurdist jokes on the mic.
Really?
Well,
He did like dad jokes then?
yeah,
Wow.
he was like he had a joke about like one of the he was like introducing the band, and he was like, I wish I remembered who he was talking about, but he was like, he's a great golfer. He always needs a second pair of pants because he always gets a hole in one. That stuck with me. And
Guitar, steel guitar, Larry Campbell. Larry's the golfer of the group. He's the golfer. Every time he goes out and plays, he wears 2 pairs of pants in case he gets a hole in one.
That's amazing.
then I
Wow.
guess, and then I guess I saw him 2 years later when Modern Times was out, and I was so disappointed. And I was like, what is this shit?
Real? What is it? Yeah. Like you just heard Self-Portrait for the first time. What was it about that? Was it the arena? Was it his performance? What?
It was partly the arena. I mean, I somehow my friend had gotten us tickets for like the 5th row. I had
Oh, wow.
deal seats. We were so close.
Because those were two crazy shows. Like he played, well, one of them he played Absolutely Sweet Marie. Were you at that one? Because you probably would have remembered that if that was your first song. He played Senior. He played Positively 4th Street.
That must have been the other one. I
The
mean,
1111. He played
this
Lonesome
was
Day Blues.
this was my.
It's
I
all
think it
right,
was
Ma.
11. This was my experience of like, what song is he playing right now? Like
I
what?
see.
Although, yeah, these are
Played
great,
by Willie McTell, like
great set lists.
Hollis
I'm not
Brown,
even
Spirit on the
sure.
Water. Those
Maybe I was just in a sour mood.
that happens sometimes. I have a show from like the 2009s, 2011, something like that in Madison, Wisconsin that I have just no memory of. And I've been to 40 shows, but I have like some sort of sense memory of every of that one. I don't remember driving there from Chicago. I don't remember where I sat. I don't remember the theater, nothing. So it happens.
You got dosed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Best night of your life.
You would have known if you had been there and he'd opened with Absolutely Sweet Marie if that was your first Bob Dylan song ever. That would have been a core memory, I think. No, maybe not.
That was also at the low point of that
Of
was
your
like at the point
fandom,
where I
yeah.
was like so skeptical of Bob
Mhm.
Dylan, and I didn't. There were things on Modern Times that I loved, but I didn't like love Modern Times.
Really? How do you feel about it now?
I think it's great.
Okay.
I think it's great. It's not a top 10. I'm so.
Wow. Wow. Hot take.
I mean, I don't know.
I mean, how do you make a top 10? I know, but for me it
Okay.
is. For me it absolutely is. Like of the Jack Frost era, it's my favorite for sure.
Oh, really? Okay,
Mhm.
because for me, love. Well, is Love and Theft count yet as the
Yep.
Jack?
Yeah, that's I would say that. Well, I mean, technically, Under the Red Sky is the first one he did as Jack Frost, but then Time Out of Mind. So I'm gonna say like the Jack Frost era is like Love and Theft on. So for me, it probably goes Modern Times, Rough and Rowdy, Love and Theft, Together Through Life, Tempest.
I could
Of-
like I just like talk with almost anyone about this forever. But oh yeah, for Love and Theft to me is I had like a canonical personal list at some point, and I
Mhm.
think it's number 3, number 2.
I love it. Oh, it's so good.
I mean, it might be just like when it hit me and
Hmm.
in high school. When
I,
it came out. I heard it when it came out.
I wanted to read you something, Ezra, going back there's no natural segue here since we're talking about live Dylan, and now I want to go back to the actual song, but more about like sort of the Christian influences here. So I may be a little out of my element here, obviously, but according to critic Justin Kober Lake, Dylan sings of St. Peter, possibly the person and the basilica, and proclaims the end of time, liberation for the poor, healing for the blind and the deaf. In the world of the song, judgment comes to right the world, and Dylan peaceably watches it come in. It also seems as if the Gospel of Matthew is a key source. The bells ring to announce the celestial reign of God, who sent his son Jesus Christ to fulfill his divine will on earth and put the quote lost sheep back on the right track. These bells proclaim the end of humankind. Were you aware of any of that stuff, or is this like is any of that either familiar to you or interesting to you? Does it have any bearing on the song at all, or it's just like, okay, whatever, it's Dylan's influences?
It's a little.
Like, I don't know the Gospel of Matthew. I've never read
I
it.
don't
Sorry.
either.
Okay. So maybe that's a reference to that. Maybe it's not, but I'm sure it is. And again, even like St. Peter, like I don't know that much about St. Peter. Like I know he's the dude that greets you at the pearly gates, but I don't know really what that means.
Yeah, I could get interested in that stuff and like how he's. I don't know. I'm like I am fascinated by the way he takes in references and remixes them into songs.
Hmm.
And I'm just like how any songwriter does, but I think he particularly has a magical way of remixing a bowl of stuff.
Hmm.
It's a weird way to say that. But to me it's like it's the person, the way he's found to hold himself that is fascinating to me and sort of influential on me. And the tone he can take here, why does it feel so earned? Part of it, there's something about I don't know, the music like builds a world where he can get away with these things,
Mm.
get away with sounding that way. And it's
Hmm.
also like it strikes me that like Bob Dylan gives up a lot to be able to achieve what he's capable of.
Say more.
He sacrifices relatability, like I was saying.
Right.
Like,
Right. He's been Bob Dylan since he was 19 years old.
that's right. Yeah. And well, it's that. It's like that he's lived this mythic life and been this mythic person. But it's also that like he's willing to take this tone that most people would think of as too lofty, but in a way he's like practiced for it. And, listening through a lot of Dylan records that even I don't like that much, there's always things that feel like preparation for the moment where he really gets it right.
Hmm.
What am I thinking of? Like for this, like I feel like this has antecedents, like it has forefathers in it. I mean, certainly in like Every Grain of Sand and stuff, but
Hmm. Hmm.
that's like a similar kind of a song. But
Right, where it has like sort of general references, a couple specific things, but it is for everyone.
yeah, but even
Well, like at the end, after that incredible climax, as you mentioned, with that sort of bridge that is so generous, he comes back to the melody of the verses with ring them bells, Saint Catherine, from the top of the room, ring them bells for the fortress, for the lilies that bloom. Oh, the lines are long and the fighting is strong, and they're breaking down the distance between right and wrong. And so I don't know what Saint Catherine is. I don't know where that is, but he comes back to this sort of imagery, and it on the one hand, um this verse could be swapped with another one. I don't like with the St. Peter one, and it wouldn't necessarily change much, but he's doing that thing where he takes two things that aren't necessarily going together and he puts them together, like from the fortress for the lilies that bloom. Like you don't I wouldn't have never thought in my brain think of a fortress and then lilies that bloom. It's almost as if he's imagining these two things that don't go together and smushing them together.
that poem, when lilacs last in the dooryard bloomed. Oh, I can't remember. What kind of English major am I?
I didn't even know you were an English major. You're giving yourself away.
Gosh, yeah. Yeah. Well, that is that's why I'm like, okay, St. Peter, that probably is doing things for other people
Right.
that I'm missing. But it's all there for me already with like the valleys and streams and the
Right.
mountain and the sheep. You can see like he's like you can see him just like looking across the world. You see like the
Hmm.
countryside that he's watching and the world's on its side. Like he can only say that because he's already made you see the world in the first lines.
Right.
Valleys and streams and
Right.
to me it's like this, do you see the stakes? It's like can't you see the stakes of this situation? They're trying to no difference between right and wrong.
Hmm.
And it like he paints the world as like the lines along the fighting strong. It's like it that world out there is a war. It's like a war
Oh,
and
that if that fortress breaks and right and wrong, there's no difference, then the world is
yes. And
right.
it's like, can you believe what they're doing out there? But
Mhm.
in here there's this bell ringing and like we can trust that the bell that bell that that
The
always
bell is like the North Star. It's just keep following that bell.
yeah, it's like we all understand what this bell means. This bell reminds us that God is one,
Hmm.
and whatever decay is happening out there, or the distance between right and wrong breaks down, and there's a sacred cow. It's like these bells are. We're still going to be ringing these bells because we know what's truly noble and good. I don't know,
Hmm.
it's also beautiful to hear. I don't know. I like to in some ways you could see him as like somehow in the 60s he saw himself become a symbol of like rebellion and misbehavior and he was just like, "Oh no, this is not." And like he's been like fighting his way back to a place where he can say this conservative thing, this like this I hold things dear. I have real reverence for right and wrong.
Right.
Um,
Conservative in terms of like conservation, like conserving, like,
it, it, I guess it has some overlap into the political sense, but
mhm.
yeah, like conserving what matters
Right.
and what's beautiful and pure about humanity. And I think I'm a little less naturally. Well, I don't know. It's hard to say. The question of like, is Bob Dylan a conservative person? It's
Mm.
a strange thing to call him, and yet like he venerates the past, and he's so respectful of the heroes of yesteryear.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. What is your favorite sort of couple lines in this whole song? What's the one that like really gets you? You're just like, oh, that one.
I mean, I was amazed by the song the first time I heard it before it was when like at the beginning. They're deep and they're wide, and the world is on its side, and time is running backwards, and so is the bride.
What does that mean? Time is running backwards, and so is the bride. What does it mean to you?
First of all, it just makes you see like a, a film in reverse.
Mm.
That's what I think of,
Hmm.
and like somehow the world is going back to this debased state, and the act of love, the wedding, that I don't know, somehow like the relationship. I don't know. There's supposed to be some kind of wedding happening, and it's being undone by the way that the world has gone so wrong and rotten.
So the bride who is running towards the bells, get me to the church on time, is sort of being pushed backwards because humanity, the world is going in reverse, sort of.
Yes, and they're
Mm.
like, right, they're
Something as wholesome and as true and honest as a bride in love running to the church to follow, for hearing the bells of love can't get there because she's being pushed back in time by the world.
exactly.
Psh,
And also it's
nice.
also just even if you don't like try to sort out what that image means, it's just a magically disorienting
Hmm.
image of a bride running backwards as time goes backwards.
Hmm.
Just like for me, it wakes you up in a way that like
Mm.
yeah, just great poetry does.
You said something earlier about, it's the fourth song. Is this in the right place on the album? I mean, I know who are we to question Bob's placement of songs, but where do you think about Ring Them Bells placement on the album? Like, we sort of political world and then eventually getting to it.
I kind of think it's perfect. It's perfectly placed. I mean, the songs before it set it up in a. I mean, like they established the tone. I think it's really good. As I was saying, it's like I wouldn't say this about every Bob Dylan record necessarily, but it's a really well crafted track list because
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's
it
just
sets up
missing Dignity and Born in Time. No.
a series of dreams.
And Series of Dreams, of course. How could I forget? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's insane.
Even there's a great Pod Dylan episode about Where Teardrops Fall, but like the saxophone that comes out of nowhere at the end of Where Teardrops Fall, you're like, what? And it's not cheesy, it's not 80s-y, it's like just awesome, right? Like
Wow, what a moment!
I
Yeah,
know.
I know those first three songs like really. When I even you listening to them, you're like, what is this album exactly? And then I just feel like they had to be there for Ring Them Bells to hit.
Hmm.
I mean, it would hit no matter where it was.
Hmm.
But like if you opened the record with Ring Them Bells, I feel like you wouldn't have seen the like wide angle view of this world that
Hmm.
he's presenting yet, and you wouldn't. Yeah, it's like I think it's quite well done. Good work, Bobby.
Good work, Bobby. Anything else before I have an exit question for you, but anything else you want to say about this song or Oh Mercy in general? Oh, I actually had a question about that. What is there a connection between the title, the name of the album and this song?
Oh, I don't know. It's Oh Mercy is sort of a great blank slate type of a title because what it's two words and it contains it's both a colloquialism and it's like a sort of statement of overwhelm and it has the word mercy in it which like puts it into this it just has a sprinkle of theology, like
Right.
and so like it's both it manages to both be like biblical and conversational,
Hmm.
which is what the record is. It's like what was it you wanted? It's just like kind of stuff being said in a room to somebody, but the world that's been built before that song comes is like, okay, this is like the stakes are so high.
Hmm. Yeah. Anything else you want to say? Now's your chance.
I don't know. I just feel grateful for that music like this exists.
Yes.
Guide
Yeah.
to me. It's cleared so much ground for me to
Hmm.
walk on and build my own little world upon.
I will say also just as an amateur musician, when I was my introduction to Bob and to playing guitar happened simultaneously. I was sort of 3 years into my Bob onboarding when I started learning how to play guitar, and I taught myself how to play guitar by just learning Bob Dylan songs, like not going A to Z, but like, starting with Free Willin' and going through everything. And I found this one like early on very difficult to play, but I recently, as you know, over the last few months, as we've been talking about it offline, it's started to get into my soul also. And the other night, I picked up the guitar to play it. It's actually quite nice to play on just an acoustic guitar. Like the chords are actually there's a couple funny ones that are hard if you're not, if you're a novice, like there's an F major 7, but other than that, you know, the song's in the key of C, and it's a nice song to play. It's so yeah. It's just a plug for like all you amateur guitarists out there that like go pick up Ring the Bells. It's not that hard.
Totally.
And maybe it's because you made it look so easy.
No, I love it as a high holiday song, even though it's got St. Peter and stuff.
Right.
Maybe you could drop in like "Ring Them Bells," Rabbi Tarfon or something.
Right. Right. Totally. Well, all right, Ezra, before I let you go, I
Yes.
have an exit question for you. So let's say you're going on tour, gearing up for a new tour. Jeff Rosen calls. They want you to open for Bob Dylan. What is your dream venue to play as an opener for Bob Dylan specifically? And would you have the chutzpah to play Ring Them Bells? I don't know if you know, but like a couple weeks ago, John Mellencamp played
Watchtower. Oh,
Watchtower, yeah,
I
at
love
the Outlaw Festival. Then Bob also played it that night, and then they both continued to play it. So, would you have that kind of chutzpah to play Ring the Bells? But after you tell me about your dream venue.
it.
I know, I gotcha.
Let's go with the Hideout.
Okay, there you go. I would love to see Bob
150
Dylan and you there.
capacity. I mean, I think somebody might get trampled to death.
Right.
That would be the one flaw with that plan.
No, they're not going to get trampled during like I've made up my mind to give myself to you. I think everyone will be okay there.
And then we'd be like, lines are long. The
Yeah.
How much chutzpah? I mean, it's. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'd have a couple of drinks and just go for it.
There you go.
I think I would have to ask him.
Yeah.
I think I'd it'd be a bit of a bold move. I mean, look, I'm skeptical of Bob Dylan, but I'm not. I don't know if I'm that.
If you're you don't know if you have that much chutzpah though. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, have you just as a follow up in your in your world have you ever come close to being in the same sort of universe as him? Like, you've played like South by Southwest and things like that and Coachella, like he played Old Cella. Like has there and you've played a lot on bills with some other, great artists. Have you guys ever crossed paths even close?
I can't think of anything. I mean, the only no,
The answer is not yet.
not yet. I felt like I was almost having an interaction with him when I had an interaction with Cat Power on her Dylan 66 tour.
That was a great show. Yeah.
But I didn't like. Yeah, I did go and see that, and I had this moment. Like, it was a seated show.
Yeah, it was weird.
It was so everyone was. You could hear a pin drop.
Right.
Like, that was fine for the solo bit, but then like they started like playing rock and roll, and I was like, this is crazy. And so I just got up and started dancing in the aisles.
Did you get yelled at?
And then the security guards came and they were like trying to stop me from dance, even though a couple of people were kind of getting up with me, and the guards were like, no. And then Sean Cat Power from the stage was like, that's my niece. Don't mess with her. She's my niece.
Oh, nice.
Middle of Baby Let Me Follow You Down.
Oh, perfect. Oh, that's great.
But then at the end of the show, they were doing like it might have been like Rolling Stone, or maybe the song before that. I just couldn't help myself. I started dancing in the aisles again, and I was just like, my eyes were closed. I was just like loosing myself. I was like, let the guards say what they want. And then I like opened my eyes, and like half the theater was out of their seats dancing with me.
Awesome.
And I had like led them.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, that must have felt so good.
Yes, how could you sit still during?
We all rushed. Everyone was sitting still the whole time, and then like finally for like Rolling Stone, I was like, F it, and we just went to the front to the stage, and she loved it.
How can you not?
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much, Ezra. This was a true treat. I really appreciate it.
Joy, thanks for having me.
You're welcome back anytime if you want to go through the entire Oh Mercy album, or maybe come back sometime and Absolutely Sweet Marie. We'll go to A to Z anytime.
Okay.
Don't tempt you.
Let's start at Ring Them Bells and circle through the entire catalog.
Amen. Let's do it. Thank you.
Until next time.
Until next time. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Thank you to my guest, Ezra Furman. Please check out EzraFurman.com for all tour, music, and socials. You can find her newest album, All of Us Flames, on all streaming platforms. Please look for the next episode on the 15th day of the month in all of your podcast feeds. Give us a follow on Twitter at Songs of Bob. If you're subscribing on Apple Podcasts, please take a moment and give us a rating and review. For a video version of this podcast, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com @Songs of Bob Dylan. You can email us at songsofbobdylan@gmail.com. Thank you to my friend and mentor, Rob Kelly, for designing our fabulous logo, and to my mandolin teacher, Mark Mitchell, from the Old Town School of Folk Music in Chicago, for teaching me how to play the intro and the outro. If you would like to help support the cost of hosting my podcasts, go to patreon.com/gonzo3249. For $5, I'll show my gratitude by giving you a shout out on the show of your choice. For $10, I'll also send you a surprise piece of vintage Bob Dylan merch. So big thank you to Rob Kelly, Roberta Rakov, Matt Simonson, and Christopher Vani. Truly, I love you all. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.
Ring them bells, you heathen, from the city that dreams. Ring them bells from the sanctuaries, across the valleys and the streams. For the deep and the wide, and the world's on its side, and time is running backwards, and so is the bride. Ring them bells, St. Peter, where the four winds blow. Ring them bells with an iron hand, so the people will know it's a rush hour now, on the wheel and the plow, when the sun is going down upon a sacred cow. Ring them bells, sweet Martha, for the poor man's son. Ring them bells so the world will know that God is one. For the shepherd is asleep, but the billows weep, and the mountains are filled with lost sheep. Ring them bells for the blind and the deaf. Ring them bells for all of us who are left. Ring them bells for the chosen few, who will judge so many when the game is through. Ring them bells for the time that flies, for the child that cries when innocence dies. Ring them bells, St. Catherine, from the top of the room. Ring them from the fortress, for the lilies that bloom, for the lines are long, and the fighting is strong, and the breaking